Thank you very much and welcome to our webinar. This time we're going to try something different. Our webinars at ClickData are usually about showcasing our product somehow, either in a training mode or whether it's to briefly go over some new features or how to solve specific industry sector problems that our solution can assist with. But today we're lucky enough that James Powell, a partner and a customer of ours, has gracefully accepted to actually present, how he's using ClickData, but more importantly, what his business is about and what he feels is the future of digitizing orders and processing and reporting. Again, just hopefully everybody can hear me okay. I want to make sure that everybody can access the webinar. So we will be posting the recorded webinar on our website, www.clickdata.com/webinars. And if you have any questions, just tweet us, or on the webinar, you can chat on the side screen, I believe. And it's a moderated chat, so we'll have somebody actually take a look at it and either intervene with James or myself at the right time. Just a very few words about ClickData, and then I'm going to let James take over. But just for those of you that don't know us, we are the world's first 100% cloud-based BI solution from end to end. We were founded in 2009. We currently have offices in Canada, US, and France, and very dedicated partners in Latin America, Australia, and Asia, in India, Australia, and in Latin America, in both Brazil and Chile. We manage over 1 million KPIs, 100,000 data sets plus. Basically it's 100,000 published dashboards per hour, not 100 of them. G2 Crowd has given us a 4.5 out of 5 stars, 95% recommendation rate from Capterra. All this stuff is really good, but what the end result of ClickData really is all about these things: dashboards and metrics and KPIs. With ClickData, you can create an unlimited amount of dashboards. We have over 60 types of visualization widgets, anything from a simple chart to very detailed interactive cartography or map charts or indicators and so forth and so on. We also have hundreds of different connectors, native connectors. That means if you have a system or a database somewhere, we are able to connect to those systems and refresh and sync up the data to the cloud. Our view of BI is in a simplified manner, is that you need to connect to the data, especially today where you have a lot of different data sources on the cloud, on premise, on your Excel, on your laptop, etc. You need to connect to all of those. You need to kind of make them talk to each other. You need to visualize that or report on that somehow, and then you need to share it, because there's no, no dashboard is good if it just sits on your desktop. So these are really the key 4 steps. Obviously, there's a lot into that, but in essence, this is the foundation of ClickData and how we're different from the other ones in terms of making sure you have a full end-to-end BI solution. And with that, I'm just going to pass it over to James to introduce himself and to introduce JPGlobal.
Yes, thanks, Telmo. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, good morning, or even good evening to some of you folks, depending on, of course, where you're located. Definitely appreciate you guys taking the time today. Do want to pass it back to Telmo, Rob, and the folks over at ClickData for just being just excellent to work with in general, but also with their solution being instrumental in allowing our customers to really go paperless and to bring everything together at the end of the day. A little bit about JPGlobal. We are headquartered in Tempe, Arizona, which is where I'm located right now, in the warm desert. It's going to be about 105 degrees here coming up in the next couple of days. So if you're somewhere a little bit cooler, just be grateful for sure. A little bit about JPGlobal itself. So we sell exclusively through a channel of resellers, whether that be in the IT, MSP, perhaps office equipment solutions provider space. We have a number of resellers throughout the US as well as Canada, and we focus on mainly document and data-driven solutions, so specifically in the document management sector regarding workflows, digital forms, and just process automation in general, okay? So a couple of things that we're going to talk about today, folks. One is we're going to discuss some of the benefits of going paperless. You know, we're moving into a world now more and more where folks need to be connected at all times in order to provide that certain level of customer service. And how can you do that? How can you operate in a digital environment, right, if you don't have all the right tools in place? So we'll discuss about some of the benefits about going paperless. We certainly tackle a number of processes ourselves and our resellers, essentially. Our customers bring to us a number of processes and circumstances and situations that they are looking to improve and optimize and such. And you know, some of those may be contract management. Some of those may be HR processes. Today, though, we're going to talk specifically about the accounts receivable process and how we were able to improve that with a furniture company actually here locally in Arizona. We're going to list out some of the costs as well as inefficiencies that are involved with processing your AR orders on paper and how inefficient that may be, and just bring to light some of the inefficiencies that may be involved with that sort of process. And then we'll go ahead and follow that up with highlighting some of the benefits, of course, of going digital, going paperless, streamlining some of your processes, cutting your costs down, and ultimately getting you into a state where you can operate optimally as much as possible. Okay. So with that being said here, so let's go ahead and let's talk about some of the thoughts that come to mind of why somebody may want to go paperless. Okay, the way we like to break it down is in the 4 C's, is what we call it. The first C being cost. Okay, there's a lot of cost involved with processing things on paper, whether that be the actual paper cost itself, ink and toner as you're making prints constantly, perhaps scans as well. So you talk about the raw physical cost, the filing cabinets, for example, as well, that are involved with that. Maybe you're a company that has off-site storage and you're paying for that warehouse, so that you're paying a lease on that storage facility. Maybe perhaps you have just things stored all over your desk. Again, there's a lot of physical cost involved with that, but you also think about perhaps the intangible costs, right? Customer service. So if a customer calls you and says, hey, I lost a copy of my invoice, or lost a copy of my order, for example, the ability for you to say, oh, no problem, let me run a search real quick and bring that order up, that is so much more effective than, hey, I have to go dig through the filing cabinet, let me call you back here in 10 minutes, for example, okay? So that can go a long way with supporting your customers instantly, rather perhaps than taking minutes or perhaps even longer to find a document. That's just an example. There's many that we can certainly name. Collaboration, okay? If you have a physical piece of a document, one document, how many people can touch that document at one time? Just a single individual. And so when you talk about things like collaboration, perhaps reviewing a contract or reviewing documents, allowing multiple people to work on that and pass it around very quickly, that's something that really comes to mind. We're right now in a world of COVID-19, and we have a lot of folks working from home, right? And so, how do you efficiently pass documents back and forth, route them for an approval, for example, by your manager, without them getting caught and lost in your email, right? Or getting caught and lost, again, if they're on paper. We actually had a customer recently come back, and they were in a paper world still, and he had to go run back to the office 3 times because he kept forgetting documents that were in his filing cabinet. Eventually, the 4th time came around and said, this is ridiculous. I need a document management system. So he reached out to us, and we're getting him into a more paperless environment now. So those are things you start to really think about. From a compliance standpoint, okay, you may be a customer or a company that, again, is in a very, very strict environment, a strict sector like the medical industry, perhaps, or the financial industry. And you have to abide things like HIPAA compliance, FERPA compliance, for example. How do you ensure that you are operating within those measures, within those procedures, and making sure your company's not being penalized? you can implement systems and you can implement processes in place that can allow you to make sure you're operating, again, within compliance and within regulation. And lastly, we talk about continuity, okay? A natural disaster can happen depending on where you're located, all right? Whether that be a hurricane, whether that be an earthquake, for example, a tsunami, perhaps even a fire, a tornado, depending on where your company is located throughout the world, you have certain natural disasters that, of course, you have to live by. Mother Nature is relentless, right? There's no mercy for anybody. So you have to make sure you have things backed up. You have to make sure you have redundancy in place. And if they're on paper, there is no redundancy. So having those records and your data digitized and stored in off-site facilities, in off-site servers, and redundant servers, for example, those are things that are very important, okay? I'll give you a quick story. So we had a customer, a law firm that signed on with us, and it was their main office that was storing all their documents, their customer contracts, everything that were billing, for example, everything that allowed them to get paid and continue to operate was all being stored at their main office. They had a few facilities, though, throughout the state, and they decided that they needed to go paperless. And it was a good thing that they did, because 12 months later, literally their main office burnt down. It caught fire. Not sure exactly how it caught fire, but it did catch fire and it burnt to the ground. But luckily, they had implemented our system. They had gone paperless, and they were able to continue operations during that horrific time. They were able to continue billing customers and continue to operate as needed. And they said, you know, had they not done that 12 months earlier, it probably would not be in business today, right? I think the statistic out there is, you know, 99% of companies that experience a natural disaster like that go out of business within the first year. I don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's what the stat is, and if it's not, it's very close to that, okay? So, but again, those are things as a business owner, right, as a chief executive, as a manager, those are things that you should certainly be thinking about and ensuring that your company has the right measures in place, okay? All right, so with that being said here, so let's talk about what the order process looks like, all right? And we can go from there in terms of, again, some of the things that perhaps may affect that process on a paper form as well as on a digital form. So talking about the accounts receivable process in general here, right, in terms of how this furniture company was handling them. So the first thing they're doing is at their showrooms that are located throughout the valley, they are producing quotes. So you walk into the store, you like a piece of furniture, and you go ahead and you speak with the sales rep, and that representative will go ahead and form a quote for you. At that time, of course, as a customer, you can choose whether or not you want to move forward now with that order. If you don't, certainly you can keep the quote and come back at a later date. But if you would like to move forward with that order, at that moment, an invoice is then generated, and you can put a certain money down, of course, towards that invoice. But on the back side, the business side of things, an order is then recognized by the main office where all the manufacturing is performed. And so that order is recognized, and they'll go ahead and create their own orders for the material so they can eventually, of course, build that furniture and then ultimately deliver that to the end customer. Okay, so that's a 30,000-foot view in terms of the steps involved with this particular customer's accounts receivable process. Okay, now let's take a look at how that is being performed on paper and the inefficiencies that this customer itself was certainly experiencing. So the first thing is that all their quotes and invoices were being generated on paper form. And so you can imagine somebody's perhaps handwriting being a little bit ineligible, for example. I know myself, I don't have the neatest handwriting. And so sometimes there were a lot of questions that had to take place on when an order was created, right? And so you would see a lot of folks calling the reps and saying, what exactly was requested here? What exactly was this, for example? You know, I can't quite read it or such. So a lot of communications that sometimes hold up processing downstream, right, that had to take place before they could perhaps place an order or build a certain piece of furniture, okay? Quotes, again, because we're being generated in paper form as well and stored in filing cabinets, reps from different locations could not view quotes. And so you had the situation where a customer was going perhaps into one location, receiving a quote, and then they were trying to shop that quote against the same company at a different location. So they would go to a different location, ask for the same exact quoted furniture, and of course sometimes, depending on the day or such, there would be some discrepancies. And so, you get into a situation where now you're being competitive against yourself, right? And that's certainly not a good thing for business. So visibility into quotes in general was something that was not apparent or not available when things were on paper form. Okay, there was lots of filing cabinets. This furniture company had filing cabinets throughout their office, taking up space, taking up rooms, and this is a company that wants to grow. They want to flourish. They want to continue with the economy, and so they needed as much space as possible. And so eliminating filing cabinets was certainly important to them. A lack of organization. There was stacks of orders here, stacks of orders over there, invoices here and such, misplaced documents, duplicated documents, for example, that didn't need to be duplicated, a complete lack of organization. And then also at the end of the day, there was no reporting, right? So in order for them to run a report, they literally had to manually count their quotes and their invoices and things, and really try to understand things on Excel spreadsheets. And it just was very time consuming. The owner was spending way too much time on things like this. The production manager also was spending way too much time on things and reports. And so, that was a big headache for them, a big time consumer. But at the end of the day, that's a critical piece of information. That's a huge value add as the owner, as a production manager, is knowing exactly what is going on with your business. And so, again, those reports were essential, but unfortunately with how they were doing them, it was taking up quite a bit of time. So that's the paper form, folks. You can start to see the inefficiencies again, the issues, the problems, the headaches that occur within that sort of environment. Now imagine transitioning that into a digital world, right, where things are now streamlined. Things are much more smoother. You have data insight into everything that's going on. That's the world that this company really strived to be in and wanted to be in, and we were able to deliver that to them in an effective manner here. So there's a few stages this company has in mind. Keep in mind, folks, if you have not gone paperless or have not made the jump into the digital world yet, it comes in stages. It's not a, yes, let's do it today and we're there tomorrow, right? It's a complete company mindset. It's a constant evolving mindset, okay? So I just want you to understand that too. And so that means that there could be many stages involved, okay? There could be perhaps stage one where you just do a certain process or a certain department. And then stage two where you add another process in another department, for example. And that's exactly what happened here in this particular case. So in stage one, we were able to digitize their quotes and provide insight into all orders so all locations could see those particular quotes, for example, and also the back office could realize and see those orders right away as well. And also be able to see at what point in the process that order is, okay? Also be able to go ahead and provide measurements on process times, which was huge for this company. So now because things are in a digital state, we could actually measure and record when an order was first placed and ultimately when that order was delivered, measure that process to show in real time then how many orders perhaps are in the queue, take an average, and let the customer know what kind of delivery time they can expect, whether that's a few days or a few weeks, okay? And again, that's all through the help of Clickdata and what we'll be showing a little bit here in just a moment for the demonstration. So stage two, folks, is what they want to do. So they're doing accounts receivable first, stage two. They want to then transition or involve accounts payable in the processing of their payable invoices. And we'll talk a little bit about that and how that will be incorporated as well. The biggest thing, folks, I can tell you on the accounts payable side is, and this could even go on the order side as well, this particular company just didn't want to go that route just yet, but they are using QuickBooks. And so when you start to get into digital processes and you have a number of systems in place now that's perhaps involved in that process, how do you bring everything together, right? And that's the true value that Clickdata really brought to our company, brings to our customers. So in this particular case, we can actually go ahead and connect the invoices that are in the document management system versus the invoices that are in their QuickBooks. And so you may go into QuickBooks as an accounting rep or an accounting individual, and you may say, oh, we have, we'll just say $35,000 in payables. But in reality, you may actually have $60,000 in payables. It's just the invoices haven't quite arrived yet because they're still in the document management system. You haven't received them yet. And so those are things that you have to understand and know. And the only way to do that is by having a system connect everything together. And that's the value that Clickity provides. And we'll show you that again during the demonstration here. All right, folks, so that's a little bit on the PowerPoint side, again, going over some of those details. Let's jump into the fun stuff and actually show you around the demonstration here. I am sharing my screen out. It sounds like Telmo can see it. Folks, if you cannot see it, please make our team aware. Again, as Telmo had mentioned, we do have a team standing by, taking questions, taking any perhaps troubleshooting issues as well. If you may have one of those, they'll walk you through on how to see the screen. Of course, if you're not logged in and you're only dialed into the phone, please make sure you're dialed in so you can see the screen too here. But folks, again, we do have folks standing by, so any questions you do have, please feel free to reach out to that marketing team. They'd love to take your questions and love to provide answers to you here too. So here we go, folks. So we're going to jump into a quick demonstration, and we'll show you again digitally, very briefly. We're not going to walk through everything here, but at least show you from a high level of what that process looks like. So first thing we're going to show you is that digital quote, okay? Now keep in mind, they were going from a 3-piece paper form quote, right, into something very beautiful like this, right? So this was just mind-blowing to the sales reps. They absolutely were very excited, loved the fact that they could now bring this up on their iPad, on their mobile device, on their desktop, and very quickly service their customers, and honestly be able to sell more, right? The less time you're with a customer, not to say that you want to rush them or anything, but the quicker you can process an order and take care of that customer, the faster you can move on to the next one, right? And so that makes everybody very happy. So here's their digital quote. As you can see, we incorporated their logo in the top left as well as their store locations and such. Now keep in mind, these digital forms are extremely customizable, but we do try to match what your current quote or your current paper form looks like today. So there isn't much of a learning curve there, okay? So do keep that in mind. They are very customizable. But with that being said here, a rep can now log in and type in all their information here. So I could go ahead and type in my name here, for example. I could choose what sort of quote this is. If it's a quote for a work order, for example, a work order would be a current customer, right, that perhaps needs some work done to their furniture that they've already purchased. It'll auto-generate a quote number here as well, and we can incorporate some of the additional information, again, that we have here too. I can choose my store location here as well, and again, fill out all the necessary details for this particular customer. Maybe I'll put in a quantity one here. We're pulling from their product list as well, so this could be an external database. This could be another system that we can pull from in terms of all the products that are required and available, again, for them to choose from here. You'll see it automatically calculates the price and the total on the right-hand side here too. We can include notes, perhaps special notes that they want for this piece of furniture. Maybe they want it, painted or colored a certain way or such. You can include, again, specific notes down there. But as you can see, as you add additional items, it'll auto-calculate the total and the tax for you depending on what city or store you chose. And then you can include any delivery terms as well as the deposit amount that the customer will be putting down. So ultimately, guys, all this math now is being done for the sales rep, whereas before these sales reps had to do it on a calculator. Again, very risky, right? What if they made a poor calculation and provided the wrong number to the customer? You can't go back and say, sorry, we have to charge you an extra $1,000. That wouldn't fly very well, right? So, now you get into the situation where I'm sure some sales reps were double-checking their math, triple-checking their math, making sure it's correct. And so that does take time, right? So ultimately, at the end of the day, we're saving time and we're allowing systems like this to perform just simple things like math for them, okay? So ultimately, once they fill this out, they can then decide to either move forward with this quote where an invoice is generated, or perhaps they save it as a quote and the customer can come back. But again, another store location can now log into this portal here and be able to call up this quote and see what another sales rep perhaps had quoted them, right? Because now it is all digital. Ultimately, though, again, if the customer does want to move forward, that order then flows into the document management system. And the one we're showing today, guys, is Global Search by Square 9. We also provide M files, for example, that we can talk about as well. Very excited for the connector that has come out for that. This does run on a SQL backend and a REST API, so we can certainly connect into this system too and provide, again, all the data insights with Click Data, which we'll talk about here in just a second. So those orders arrive into the invoices cabinet here and are placed under the orders received. An email notification goes out to that customer, and now as a production manager in the manufacturing facility, they can now track their orders at every single stage that perhaps that order's at. So it flows to prefabrication materials, it may be flagged for resolution, it goes to fabricating, ready for powder, scheduling, and eventually delivered and balance is paid, okay? And so at any particular stage in that workflow process, these orders are now being tracked. They're now being watched and monitored and understood where and how many are at any particular stage. You'll notice each order here, we have a little thumbnail. We can double click and open up one of these orders here, as you can see too. I'll close out of that, but we store all these orders by this key metadata here. So I have customer name, invoice number, invoice amount, location, and such. Now, because this is now data in SQL that we can use in Click Data to measure, right, and to create insights and to create our dashboards with. So this data is very, very useful. There's also an audit trail that's kept in SQL for all these orders that we can also use for grabbing key metadata and key information to, again, eventually create our dashboards and our reports, okay? So ultimately that order flows through this, and they want to track that, and eventually so it makes its way to being completed. And so now we talk about having some data here. We have some data over here, for example, in the form solution. They are using QuickBooks again as well. They have some data in that solution as well. Ultimately, though, you do have some data in a lot of different systems, and that's why a solution like Click Data, again, can bring everything together into one centralized location, provides you with an overview of what's happening in your business. And so this is the actual dashboard that we built for this particular customer as of right now. Again, this is a work in progress in terms of stages, okay? So there's going to be perhaps more dashboards to come to this customer. Absolutely there will be, and many other processes as well. So let's walk through some of the things that they are now able to measure without having to do it manually with paper and in Excel. So the first and biggest thing, folks, is if you direct your attention to the top right-hand side here, is going to be the average time to complete your order. And so this is very, very important. As a reminder, we are now measuring how long it takes from order generation to order completion, okay? And we can take that time, and we can then see how many orders are in the queue, take an average, and multiply it by that time, and say, okay, here's how long you can expect a order to be turned around, okay? And so a sales rep now has access to this dashboard, and they can tell you how many days an order is expected to be completed. So this company strives to have an order turnaround time between 5 and 15 days. That's pretty good for them. Less than 5 days is excellent. We represent that with green here. But beyond 15 days, which is essentially 3 weeks if you talk about business days or such, but in reality they operate Saturday and Sunday too. So it's really just over 2 weeks. But really just over 2 weeks, as you can see here, they start to get into the red. So they want to stay under that 15-day mark. But this allows now a representative to let that customer know, provide them with clean insight to say, hey, this order is expected to take just 8 days, and we can have that ready for you within that short period of time, okay? Also, in the center of the screen here, we have all the orders by month broken down here as well. So each day of the month, how many orders have come in and have been received, again, through that quoting system. On the left-hand side, we have the total revenue as well for all of those orders that have been placed here too, okay? On the bottom here, we now have that revenue broken down by location. So how many were received by the Gilbert location, Phoenix location, Scottsdale and Tempe. Okay, so that's a clean breakdown in terms of how much is actually being, what store is producing the most. Okay, what store is on top, and perhaps what store is kind of down towards the bottom, which looks like Phoenix is here. Okay, in this particular example. And then if you notice also, we have some parameters, some filters that we've also incorporated into here. So the idea was to provide not only a dashboard like this to the owner, to the production manager as well, but then also provide access to the sales reps. So the sales reps can log in and be able to see what their revenue is for each particular order here too. And even as a owner or as a manager, they can log in and understand what the reps are doing in closing. So on here we have the sales rep now that we can choose, or excuse me, in this case the status. I want to see how many orders are in process, for example. And then I can go and say by the sales rep, I can choose now how many, maybe just Amanda, right? So as myself, I can log in and I can see where my orders are, how much in revenue I have for my orders at any particular stage in that process, okay? Maybe I want to see all orders completed, all right, so closed out and we're paid by an individual sales rep, maybe Jessica, for example, or maybe Ryan, for example. Again, that updates that there in real time. And so that's extremely powerful and useful now from a management level as well as from a sales rep level. Again, guys, keep in mind, this is a company that did not have any infrastructure. They had no systems in place. That's our target audience as, you know, as JPGlobal ourselves. But these are folks that did not have any of this in place. So to be able to go from a analog, paper-based world into a digital world like this and provide these key insights in real time is tremendous, guys. It's a huge value add, and the customer couldn't be happier. So that's a little bit on the accounts receivable dashboard, folks, that we have provided to them. The other dashboard I want to show you here real quick is going to be, again, a more future one. And this isn't going to necessarily look like this, but I just want to show you an example now on the payable side, accounts payable, which is a very popular process, again, that we provide solutions for in our industry. For here, we have the accounts payable invoices. So in the top here, we can show how many payables are broken down by vendor inside the document management system, by revenue, by vendor, as well as payables versus in the document management system versus what's in your accounting software. Okay. So on the left-hand side here, we have shown by vendor name, invoice number, and invoice amounts are payables that are inside the document management system that haven't been approved yet, that are still being processed. We have just under $23,000. So on the right-hand side, we have our payables that have entered and made their way into the accounting software, and we have just over $7,000. Well, that's a big difference. That's almost a 3x difference, right, or over a 3x difference, right? So that's something very important to know from an accounting perspective of where your payables are at and how many are actually in place. So by leveraging ClickData's platform and connecting those systems together to provide that central view and measure those data tables, this allows now great insight by the accounting team and management to understand where really everything is at, okay? Now, again, if you're not quite understanding why you would have payables in the account document management system and not in accounting, perhaps I didn't explain that very well, but I just want to make sure. So from a process perspective, you can scan your invoices into the document management system. We can go ahead and route those through a digital workflow approval process and then push that data, integrate that data into the accounting software to eliminate things like manual data entry, for example, okay? So very, very valuable to a customer. But as you can imagine now, sometimes you'll have payables in that document management system that haven't made their way into accounting just yet. They're stuck on approval. Maybe that person's on vacation. Whatever it may be, they're stuck in that system for a short period of time. And so knowing that you still have those payables and having insight into that, again, is very valuable with the ClickData solution. So, folks, again, this customer is loving it. ClickData has been instrumental in bringing everything together and providing those insights that just weren't available until today. And so, again, hats go off to Telmo and Rob and the team. They've been absolutely amazing with providing education and insight and just overall availability with help on the solution and everything. And we can't say enough about it. We've had a tremendous experience so far, and we're looking forward to growing our partnership with ClickData and really being that key resource here in North America and going forward. So really hats off to you guys for creating a tremendous solution here, and we're looking forward to the future of what else you're going to be coming out with here as well. So with that being said, I'm going to pass it back off to Telmo, folks. Again, any questions, feel free to use the chat, but thank you so much for your time.
I appreciate that, James. Thanks very much for putting this together and for sharing your time. We have a couple of questions. I actually had a question in terms of, as you know, Clickity is based heavily as well in Europe and not only in Canada and North America. So there's, we're very conscious about data regulations around, there's GDPR, there's the new California privacy law, there's a lot of data protection and HIPAA compliance, which you mentioned as well. And in my understanding is, every country and every state and every province always have their regulations as well. You must keep X amount of years of paper. Paper is still something that especially in Europe, sometimes some countries are very focused on paper. Have you had, what is your experience in terms of getting pushback from customers or from government or state entities in terms of going fully digital, and how do you mitigate that?
Yes, great question, Tom. Though absolutely, it's I would be lying if I said it's a perfect world and everybody wants to go paperless. It's definitely not the case in this in this particular situation, unfortunately. But there are some industries that are heavily regulated, and for the most part, everyone is able to go paperless. But there are some industries now and then that come up that they say they have to remain on paper, right? So. We are not the legal experts by any means. With that, I would definitely advise any customer to investigate and reach out to their own, depending on what state or what country you reside in. But at the same time, we do see other industries that mandate folks having to go paperless. I think the state of Rhode Island, for example, has made it mandatory for the courts that they must receive only documents on paper. They will not receive anything. They will only receive digital documents. They will not receive anything on paper. So it does range. I encourage you to certainly investigate individually with your own industry or such. But for the most part, I would say 99% at this point, industries are accepting digital data, digital documents, and it's something, of course, that we're happy about. And that's only going to get better, folks, of course, as this world evolves and changes. The old ages of dealing with paper is just no longer relevant, right? We have so many technologies available, like Clickdata, like these other solutions out there that are at our fingertips, and so folks want to leverage them ultimately.
Absolutely, and I think it's times like these that sometimes it pushes that envelope a little bit further. Just another question here that in terms of getting this in front, and you're talking about sales reps and potentially employees and staff that has been set in their ways. How do you have you come up with the best kind of practice in terms of change management, in terms of getting these? One thing that I've noticed on your system, on Global Search, on the forms product, is how realistic those forms look. They look almost like the paper version of it, which I think is beautiful, right? Because there's a nice transition for them. It's very well formatted. It's almost ready to print, if not fully ready to print. It looks and feels like the real thing. So is that part of your strategy? Or are there other things that you've encountered in terms of getting companies to move up to digital?
Yes, no, definitely. As humans, right, I think second nature for us is we're scared of change, right? Folks are scared of the unknown, right? And I don't think it's change itself that we as businesses don't like, or individuals within a business don't like. I think ultimately it's the unknown, right? It's the unknown of, is my position going to be still around, or am I still going to fulfill my position and the duties involved with that? Am I going to be able to learn this system? I think that's the true fear, right? The change itself, people are open to change, but I think it's not knowing if they're going to be able to adapt to that change. That is really their true fear. And so how do we help control that? How do we help mitigate that fear itself? Is we try to replicate that process as much as possible in the digital world. So it's a very smooth transition. We offer educational classes, hand-holding, where users are actually processing orders and quotes, for example, through the entire process with those individuals until they get comfortable with it. So from an educational perspective, we let them know and let them know that we're there to help them, right, as much as possible. So, I think ultimately, any culture change is going to be some fear, but it's how do you mitigate that, and are you there for your customers to help smooth that transition and replicate it, right? Again, that replication is key. And to your point, Tomo, yeah, we do try to make the documents, the processes alike as much as possible.
Excellent. Just one more, and we have about four minutes left here. There's a question here. Approximately how long did it take you to put specifically the click data portion together? Are we talking about days, months, or weeks? What kind of time range do you kind of give to basically connect it? Obviously here you connected to your data, and then you built some dashboards from a sales rep perspective,
yes,
with filters and so
actually,
forth.
Tomo, it's funny. This is my favorite question that we get from our resellers as well as customers, right? So, of course, we're constantly recruiting resellers throughout North America. Folks, if you're interested at all, please feel free to reach out. But a question that comes up, of course, is how long does it take to implement a solution like Click Data and get that up and running and live, for example? Now, keep in mind, we come from a world of document management systems, real custom and complex workflows. And so these projects take sometimes 6 months, 12 months, for example. I'm on a project right now, it's been 2 years, okay? Some of these projects are very, very extensive, very, very long sales and project cycles, okay? And so to go from that, right, and to bring on a solution like Click Data now and provide so much value, right, to a customer and be able to say, we can deliver this back to you in a day, in 2 days, 3 days, maybe tops or so, is absolutely mind-blowing, not only to our employees, right, our employees here at JPGlobal when we first brought it on, but to our vendors and to our customers, right? They are so excited to know that if they move forward today, we can have them live, up and running by the end of the day tomorrow, and maybe do training the same day as well, walk them through the dashboard. That gets them excited. It gets the sales reps excited because they get paid faster, of course, once that deal is closed out. So ultimately, everybody's very, very happy with the speed of implementation in the cycle to implement a solution like this. And honestly, that just goes back to the Click Data team and the tremendous product they built. That was a huge assessment point for us when we were working with Rob and looking at many of the solutions out there in the market and how they interacted and the features that they had. That was a huge reason why we decided to partner with Click Data, is the ease of use. It is so intuitive. It's so easy to build out these dashboards. And again, hats off to Tomo and the Click Data team. They've been a phenomenal product.
Well, with that, James, we have a couple questions here, but we'll answer them offline. And I want to thank you for once again to put this together, to showcase this, and thanks for your time as well. I wish everybody a healthy rest of the week, rest of the month, rest of the life. In fact, that stay safe, stay healthy, and you'll be able to catch this entire webinar on our replay on our website. You also have our social contacts there in terms of emails and Twitter community and Facebook. So please keep in touch if you have any ideas for webinars or would you like to present as well. Please get in touch with us. Again, thank you very much, James. Thanks, everyone, and have a great and safe evening.
Thank you, Tomo. Thank you.